Message match can make or break our marketing campaigns, but what is message match and why does it actually matter? That's what we're going to be talking about today with a lesson inspired by Pirates of the Caribbean, both the movies and the attractions. One of my very favorite franchises in the Disney world. No pun intended. But in any case, hi, I am John Delancey, the head Disney nut and marketing aficionado, or vice versa, here at Marketing the Magic. We are a small community, or a community rather, we will hopefully not be small long, for small business owners who want to get a better grasp on their marketing strategy and tactics using lessons inspired by the Walt Disney Company. As I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about a really interesting topic in online marketing, and that is message match. We'll talk about what it is, why it's important, how Pirates of the Caribbean can help us to get a grasp on it, and then we're actually going to look at a real example of both good and bad message matching in a real a real fake ad campaign. In any case, let's dive in. So, this is a bigger topic than I can possibly cover in the 20 to 30 minutes that we have here today. So what I'm really going to be doing is trying to introduce what the concept is, and really, again, like I said, why it's important, and provide a concrete, easy to grasp example of what it is so that you can then take at least that basic understanding and start applying it to your own marketing, because this is something that a lot of business owners and marketing professionals even get wrong a lot of the time, because we're always split testing and trying new things and all those things. But before we get into all that, what is message match? Okay, so message match generally applies or is most often discussed in terms of advertising campaigns online. So Facebook ads or pay-per-click ads on Google search and things like that. And what it really refers to is the idea that the ad should always match your landing page. The message of your advertisement should always match the landing page on your website. So what exactly does that mean? Well, what we're referring to there is, take a Google search ad, for example. You have a headline and a description. Sometimes you can play around with different aspects of the URL and the way it's displayed, but primarily you have an ad headline and an ad description. And if somebody reads those things and says, holy crap, that's exactly what I need for my business, or that's what I need to solve my problem, they click on that ad. And when that ad is going to take them to a landing page on your website. If it's taking them to your homepage, we've got bigger issues to discuss. So let's assume that you're already sending people to a specific landing page for that particular campaign. Now, if they get to that landing page and the headline, what they read in the headline and description of the ad doesn't match anything on the page, they don't see what made them click in the first place, they don't see the offer that they were expecting, they don't see any of the same language or branding that they were expecting, it creates frustration and confusion in your visitor, which means you lose money because they just clicked, came to your website, and left without taking any action whatsoever. So that's the very quick and dirty overview of what message match is. And while it's most obvious in advertising campaigns online, it does apply in other places. So basically, anywhere that we create a message on one platform designed to send somebody to another with a marketing purpose in mind, so lead generation or creating a sale or whatever it might be, we need to keep this idea of message match in mind. Now, one example of that that's not in an advertising campaign would be if you run a blog for your company. So it's pretty typical at the end of a blog post to include a call to action. We want to give our reader something to do after they've finished reading the blog post. We want to keep them engaged. We want to continue building that relationship. So I'm going to actually show you an example here from the Marketing the Magic blog. And so you'll see we have a blog post here. And as we scroll down the page, we have all the cool blog posts and text and all that stuff. And then at the very end, we have a call to action that says, want a little Disney and marketing magic in your inbox every week. Subscribe to the MTM blog. Great. We have a button that says subscribe now, and somebody can click on that. Now, if somebody clicks on this call to action on my blog post, expecting to go subscribe to the Marketing the Magic blog, and when they get to that landing page, what they see instead is a headline that says, give us your email address and we'll send you special offers and coupon codes every single day. What's that going to do? That's not what they clicked on the call to action for. That's not what they expected to see when they got there. Instead, what they expected to see was something that said, subscribe to the Marketing the Magic blog. With a very simple form, explains what they're going to get, it explains how often they're going to get it. It addresses the motive behind them clicking the call to action in the first place. So that's just a very quick example of how message match can be important even outside of the more traditionally understood advertising campaigns. But let's continue diving into this subject. So why, aside from not confusing your visitors, what is this good for? Well, when you create a cohesive experience for your visitor, when you create a cohesive campaign that respects this idea of message match, you're telling a good story. And the better the story we tell, the more our visitors and potential customers are going to be drawn into our brand. It reinforces our brand as being someone they can trust. They saw something that enticed them, they clicked it expecting something, and they got the result they were after. That creates trust and begins to create a relationship between your company and your visitor. So that's why, in a nutshell, at the very beginning of this, it's so important. But how in the world can Pirates of the Caribbean help us to understand this? Well, Pirates offers a huge number of lessons, and it is one of my very favorite franchises in the Disney lexicon. You can see I've got Pirates poster here in the background. I love Pirates of the Caribbean. I love the rides. I love the movies. I'm so excited about the one that's coming out here whenever it's coming out. So maybe not that excited. I don't know when it's coming out, but I am excited. So I love Pirates. And there are a tremendous number of marketing lessons that we can glean from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, from how to do merchandising and how to tell cohesive stories, to message match like we're going to talk about here in just a moment, even through to corporate synergy, making sure that all the different divisions and departments within your corporation work well together through internal marketing. There's just a tremendous number of lessons, like I said, that we can learn from Pirates of the Caribbean. But again, it is a fantastic example of message match in marketing. So, if we think of, again, these marketing campaigns as being little mini stories, and we want to tell a cohesive story, a complete story, one that draws our user in and creates trust from the very beginning, then Pirates is a fantastic example. So let's start with the attractions. The original Pirates of the Caribbean opened at Disneyland, and then there's a new Pirates of the Caribbean, not a new Pirates of the Caribbean, there was a new Pirates of the Caribbean opened at Walt Disney World when it opened, and I believe there is some form of Pirates of the Caribbean at every park around the world. But what we're going to focus on right now is Disneyland and Disney World. So if you've been to both parks, or if you've watched ride-through videos on YouTube like I do all day, you know that there are subtle differences between Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland and at Disney World. The entrances from outside of the attraction in the parks to the attractions, and then the beginning segments of those attractions are very different, really. But they end up in the same place. They end up in the same core story of these swashbuckling pirates in this burning town and all the things we love about pirates, the flume drop and all those things. They use the same music and some of the same characters and the same ideas, the same basic premise in both rides, despite there being differences. And we can think of this like a Facebook ad versus a Google search ad. They're two very different purposes when we run those kinds of ads. So Facebook, we're generally speaking going to be advertising to people that may not even know they need our services yet, or aren't actively looking for someone to meet that need at that moment. With Google Search, they have typed in a search query that we have bid on, and that's when our ad shows, is when that person is looking for what we offer. So that's two very different approaches that can lead someone to the same place. Just as Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland and Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney World have two different entries and two different beginnings to the story, but end up in the same place. Now, the movie series then came into play, and again, it was kind of an evolution or a different angle or a different part of the story within the world of Pirates of the Caribbean. They introduced new characters and new places and new plot lines and things like that. But they were very careful to incorporate those core elements of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise into the movie. And we'll talk about why in just a second. But if you look at the logo for the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, it's almost a combination of the signage outside Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland and the sign outside of Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney World. So it's like they combined the elements of those two so that when people saw it, they would immediately recognize that brand, regardless of whether they were Disneyland attendees or park guests or Disney World park guests. So then they also incorporated different elements from the attraction inside the movies. So not over the top and not kitschy or cheesy. Well, sometimes a little. But they incorporated things like the scruffy dog holding the keys outside of the prisoners' jail cells and the prisoners whistling at him to try to get the keys from him. They used the yo-ho music from the rides several times throughout the movies, and in different ways. They tweaked it and kind of remixed it, so to speak. So they used that. We saw the pirate wallowing in the mud with the pigs from the rides in a scene in Tortuga in the movies. So they were very careful to incorporate some of those core story elements from the attractions into the movie. And the reason that I believe that they did this was so that people who grew up going to the parks and riding those attractions would immediately recognize the brand. They would immediately recognize the story that they love in the attractions in this new chapter of the story in the movie. That's what that did. It created that connection. It created that trust in the audience for the movies that they were getting what they came for. It wasn't some brand new thing and some new idea, and it wasn't going to be horribly murderous and graphic and completely distinct and separate from the attractions that they grew up with. Then what we saw was the elements of the movies were reincorporated back into the attraction. So of course you probably know this, but Captain Jack Sparrow can now be found in the original attractions. And what that did was complete the loop. It completed the circle so that people in new generations who start by seeing the movies and understand the story and the world of Pirates of the Caribbean through the movies can then go to the parks and ride those attractions and, again, create that trust. They're getting what they expect. They're seeing the elements of this cohesive, larger story. The message matches. So, the whole Pirates of the Caribbean franchise does a fantastic job of this, and you can go look at any element of it, from the attractions to the movies to the merchandising to the new books and the old books, all of the books that have been released around this franchise. They all do a great job of weaving these elements of the same central story in a way that makes everything match. It creates that trust that when you pick up that book or you pick up a copy of that movie or you go stand in line at Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland, you know what to expect. Now, let's get practical. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to look at a real fake Facebook ad campaign that I've put together. And I've chosen to put together a Facebook campaign, and forgive me for looking back and forth here. I'm just making sure that, everything's still live and like it's supposed to be and all those things. But I've chosen to do a Facebook stream. This is live. A Facebook ad campaign because it's very visual, because it's easy to see what these ideas that I'm talking about distinctly, very visually. But keep in mind that these things do apply in basically every other form of marketing that we do. So not just Facebook ads, but search ads, blog, content offers and content marketing. Anywhere, again, that we're taking someone from one place and enticing them to go to another place with an offer, we need to make sure that we are taking care of this idea of message match. So that's enough about that. Let's actually get in here and look at a real fake campaign. So what we're going to do, the company that I've created for this is called Acme Mortgage Lending. So Acme Mortgage Lending is a provider of loans, obviously, for mortgages or refinances or home equity lines for remodels and things like that. And that's actually what we're doing today is we're going to create a campaign for Acme Mortgage Lending for home equity lines of credit for the use of people who want to remodel their existing homes. So we're going to create an ad campaign that looks something like this. And by the way, if you are doing Facebook advertising and you don't know about the Creative Hub, and where you can go to create mock-ups of ads and test how things are going to look and behave, you need to do that. It's an amazing tool. And that's what I've done here. I've created this kind of mocked up ad for Acme Mortgage Lending, and it reads, "Start your home renovation project now. Interest rates are at all-time lows. You could start construction tomorrow with a home equity line of credit at just 0.0001% interest." That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? So apply today. And then we see this nice graphic of tools that make you think of doing construction and remodeling, and the headline says, "Apply for a home equity line of credit right now. Apply today, start construction tomorrow." And again, we repeat the call to action with our button that says apply now. So our visitor is going to see this ad and they click on it, and what they're going to see is this. Holy crap. What is this? It's wrong. There is no message match here. So let's talk about it. Let's break this down and look at exactly what we're talking about. So our brand is only really reinforced by this graphic at the top that says Acme Mortgage Lending, but everywhere else the color scheme's different. The branding feels different. The headline, the offer, don't match what was offered in the ad. Get the lowest mortgage rate has nothing to do with why we clicked on the ad in the first place. We clicked on the ad looking for a home renovation loan, not a mortgage. We already have a mortgage. We already have a home. And these interest rates are definitely not 0.0001%. And our call to action says request a call next week. Now that's also not what we clicked on that ad for. The ad said apply now, start construction tomorrow. So why would I request a call sometime next week? This is a horrific example of message match. So let's look at what it should look like. Now we're talking. This is looking much better. So, again, our branding now matches. We have the same color scheme throughout. Our headline and the offer match. Start your home renovation now. Interest rates are at all-time lows on home equity lines of credit. And again, we'll pull up our ad just for reference here. The call to action says get a free quote today. So that's not exactly what the call to action was, but it's still in the same vein. It's not going to be distractingly different, and that's okay. We're never going to have perfect message match, especially because we do need to split test and try different angles and different images and things like that. But most of the elements, as many of the elements as we can possibly control, match the ad. So the image, you can see, the image that we use in the background on this landing page matches the image that was used in the advertisement. So it creates that instant sense of trust and reassurance that, yes, indeed, I am now on the page that gives me what I was looking for. And again, down here on the form, it'll say get pre-approved and close your home equity line in one day. And again, if only it could be that fast. But it's reiterating that they are taking the action that they meant to take, that they wanted to take. So that is what a decent message match landing page would look like, or decent message match in our ad campaign would look like. So let me come back to our main camera here, and let's start to wrap this thing up. Now, that example, particularly the bad example, may have seemed completely ridiculous. You might think to yourself, there is no way any company would ever create a campaign that looks that horrible, that the message match is that far off. And you would be wrong. This happens day in and day out. I see this over and over and over again with people who are becoming my clients and who I try to avoid this problem for, with people I've worked with in the past, with other people around the internet who are asking questions about why their campaigns aren't working. And the thing is, it's not just small businesses or small marketing professionals that are making these mistakes. Big brands are making these mistakes. Samsung and the Mini Car Company, Air Canada, have all had examples, of ad campaigns that took people to a landing page that had absolutely nothing to do with the offer that was made in the ad that they clicked on. Now, those big brands can afford that because some people will still look around and find what they came for and whatever. They'll be a little agitated about it, but they'll still get through the process. Most people will get frustrated and confused and angry and leave, and you just lost whatever it cost you for that click, and that might be your best case. You can actually do harm to your brand by creating too badly aligned campaigns. So I think we all probably know that angry customers tend to talk a lot more than happy customers. So if their first experience with your brand is one of frustration and they feel like they're being tricked maybe and they're not seeing what they came for, what do you think they're going to tell their friends if somebody says, hey, you know what, I also need a loan to start a renovation on my home? Do you know anybody? And they're going to say, well, don't go to Acme Mortgage Lending. Those guys are idiots. That's harm to your brand. On the opposite side, if you get Message Match right, all you're doing is increasing the return on your investment. It's a big part of what's called conversion rate optimization. So the more trust that we can build, the more alignment we can get between the ad that brought someone to our page or whatever the original content was, whether it was an ad or a social media post or a blog post or an email or whatever it was, the more connection that we can make between that original ad and the landing page and the offer that they receive when they click on it, the better off we're going to be. The more trust we build, the more likely they are to convert to be a lead or a customer or whatever the case may be. So I hope that this very brief, very broad, very general introduction to Message Match has been helpful. I hope it has maybe illustrated what this concept is all about and why, especially, it's so important. If you have any questions or horror stories even about Message Match, I would love to hear about it. You can comment here on YouTube where we're broadcasting today or after the fact on the replay. If you're watching on Facebook, you can comment there. If you're listening to the podcast, and by the way, we'll come back to that podcast thing in a second. If you're listening on the podcast, shoot me an email at john@marketingthemagic.com. I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, horror stories, whatever you have to tell me. So, and speaking of, on that podcasting, yes, you probably noticed that I was talking about going back and forth and showing these ads on screen today. And if you're listening to the podcast, obviously you couldn't see those things. So if you're interested, if you were curious what our video attendees were seeing, you can either go watch the videos if you just really want to, or you can check out the blog post at marketingthemagic.com/blog. And you'll see this entry, and you'll be able to go through, and we have screenshots in that blog post that show exactly what I showed the video audience today. So that is going to wrap things up for this week and this lesson on Message Match inspired by Pirates of the Caribbean. I hope, again, that you've enjoyed the show. Let me make sure we don't have any comments. We do not. Awesome. In any case, go out and make the life that you want to live, and we'll see you real soon. Thanks.